Good evening. It's Friday. It's Good Friday, 7:21 p.m., April the 10th, 2020. And I'm sitting here with my mother, Evelyn Minton, and we're going to have a good conversation this evening. How are you, Mom?
I'm just fine.
Well, great. I'm really glad to be here with you. Happy Good Friday to you.
Well, happy Good Friday to you.
I also call it Good Friday, God's Friday.
That's true. That's the way I look at it.
Well, today I would like to talk to you about your brother, Clint.
Oh, he's a wonderful brother.
Yes, and I know you were very, very close. And the reason I wanted to talk about Uncle Clint is because his birthday's coming up soon. It's also almost a year of the anniversary of when he passed away last year. And I just thought that it would be very appropriate to talk about Uncle Clint today. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think that's wonderful.
Okay, well, can you tell me a little bit about how it was when you and Clint were growing up?
When Clint and I was growing up, well, we always shared things, and we were real close, and we helped my mother, and he'd help me with the housework while she was in the garden or in the yard with her flowers and stuff, and he's always there to help me. I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, but he's the one that was always helped. The others would either run off or they wouldn't help me, so we just always was close. And as we grow older and got in our teens and older than that till we could go out, we'd get together and go out to a club to dance and listen. He loved to listen to a band, so we'd go out and visit, when they had a band around. And he was an excellent dancer, and I was too. Me and him both was real good dancers, and we just had a good time.
Now, Uncle Clint, he was really good looking. I mean, even as he got older, I bet the girls were all over him.
Oh, they were. He was so handsome. And when I danced with him when I was, when we was in the club. And most of them knew that he was my brother, and they'd come up and cut in and want to dance with him. And he just laughed and got a kick out of it. And he danced with all of them. They just loved him.
I always wanted a brother, especially a brother that would be the way Clint was to you. And I always really respected the relationship the two of you had, because you always treated each other with trust and respect and honor. And both of you were always doing something for the other one, like cooking or visiting, spending every holiday together. And after my dad passed away, Uncle Clint was almost like a dad to us. He was always around if we wanted him around. He was always here.
Yes, he was. On Christmas, Thanksgiving, he'd always be here, and I'd go to his house and my family, and he was just one of our family. After I grew up and got married and everything, and he was married too. When he got married, him and his wife would always come and visit me, and we stayed close up until he passed.
And he really liked my dad too.
Oh yes, he loved P.F. They'd kid and joke around, and he'd always go, and P.F. had a band, and he'd always go to the club with me to hear P.F. and his band play, and we just really had fun when we grew up.
Uncle Clint, he brought me a photo of him and Daddy together, laughing, sitting together on a couch, and he told me a story. I don't know if you remember this. I'm going to tell you this real quick.
Okay.
Uncle Clint told me that he was getting ready to get a big job in Virginia in the coal mines, and he was going to be over hundreds of men, and that he had to pass this course, and that Daddy tutored him in this specific math course, and that because Daddy tutored him for like a month or two, that he was able to pass that exam and get that position.
Yes, I remember that. They were close, and he taught him or helped him in any way he could, and they just got along so good.
That is great. Yeah. Now, I know Uncle Clint was in the service, and I thought it was interesting. One day when he came to our office just a few years back, several years back. I remember before he was leaving one day, he looked at me and he said, I wish I had what my sister Evelyn had. And I said, Clint, what's that? And he said, well, she's got kids that, take care of her and look after her and have fun with her. And you want to know something, Mom? It wasn't 2 weeks later till he came in with that letter from Sandy and her son. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. He was smiling, and he had this letter in his hand when he came in the door, and I said, well, something good's happened. I thought maybe he got a big check from the Army or something. And he said, guess what happened to me? And he said, I have got a daughter. I said, oh, you've got a daughter? And he said, yes, I want you to read this letter. So when I read that letter, I was so happy, and he was just, he said, I can't wait to see her. So she came in not long after that.
I know, and the funny thing is, years ago when she started looking for Uncle Clint, they didn't have the services that they do now online to find people. Mm-hmm. So she searched for him for 51 years and finally found him. And the neatest thing is her mother, Ethel, was still living too. And she brought Ethel down here, and Ethel and Clint got to spend a whole weekend together, the three of them.
That is correct. And they came to Billy's office, and we all had fun in there, and we took pictures. And she would still loved him. I believe she did after all these years. Ethel loved Clint.
Yes, I think Ethel never fell out of love with Clint. That was her true love.
She wanted to come down here and stay, and but it wasn't long till she passed.
I know. And their daughter, Sandy, Ethel and Clint's daughter, Sandy, my cousin now, is beautiful. She looks exactly like Uncle Clint. Looks like he spit her out of his mouth, doesn't she?
He did. Yes, sir. They look so much alike.
And the first time we met her, she had on a funny hat like he wore.
Yeah, she looked so funny. And she just so sweet and kind. And she just like him. I mean, he loved her, I'm telling you. He was so happy. So he got to be happy before he passed.
And, Sandy was like Clint. She was a very good businesswoman, very smart, made good decisions.
Oh, yes, she does. She's real well off, and she'd buy Clint all kinds of gifts, and he'd buy her gifts, and they'd talk to each other, and she'd come in, and they would come over here or come to Billy's office, and we just had so much fun.
Yes, and they'd go to the grocery store together, and then they'd go home and cook.
Yeah, they'd go home and cook, and she'd call me and laugh, and she'd say, that Dad won't let me do nothing. Said, he's over here cooking. I said, well, Sandy, you ought to let him cook. He's a good cook.
He really liked taking care of her.
Yes, he did. And she got fixed her room up there and put her a new bedroom suit in there, and she was just really happy.
Yeah, when she would come to visit him, she had her own little place to stay, so she felt comfortable, and she'd always aggravate him because he didn't have the internet, and she'd come to my office to use it.
Yeah, he said he didn't want that old internet. He didn't need it. And she said, now, Dad, you're going to get it because I'm going to be coming down here and staying with you, son. And he just laughed.
I loved seeing the two of them together. They were a pair.
Yes, they were. They were just, seemed like they were just, you never seen them without them smiling and laughing and just, I don't know, they were so happy.
This is the kind of thing that I've always seen on TV. I never thought it would happen to our family, that we would actually have a new relative that had looked for us as hard as she could look for us for over 50 years. That's just incredible.
I know, it is. And she said she would never stop until she found him. She told her mother that. And her mother wanted to come down here and live. But she passed away, and Sandy lost her daddy and her mother in less than a week, wasn't it?
It was a week or two apart, and
it was so sad.
But the most beautiful thing is that they got to spend, all three of them, a whole weekend together.
Yeah, they did. They spent a weekend together, and they were planning on coming back. Sandy was going to bring her mother back, and she was such a sweet woman and just cute as a button.
Oh, she was so beautiful and elegant.
Yeah, she was. And just like Sandy, they're both just wonderful, wonderful people.
I feel so happy that I got to meet her mother, and I'm really happy that I know my new cousin Sandy. I love her dearly. She's so smart and beautiful and just kind. She's one of the kindest people I've ever met.
Yeah, she always, when she comes, she brings everyone a gift. She just buys whole loads of things and brings down here and gives them out. And she said she's just so happy to do it because it'd been so long, that she'd never had a family like us.
Yes, she told me that she'd always felt that missing piece in her heart until she found Uncle Clint.
That's right. She said that they was just something pushing her and she wouldn't stop until she found him.
Well, Uncle Clint had no idea that he had a daughter, no idea whatsoever. He told me that when he came back, he told me that after he had left and been shipped out, that he and Ethel had been together in Georgia at a dance, and he had been shipped out the next day, and when he came back, she was already gone, and he couldn't even find her. So, you just couldn't find each other as easy as you can today.
No, you can't. He said he meant to marry her whenever he come back from overseas, but he said he looked for her, but he never could find her.
That was so sad.
That was sad.
But at least in the end, they had a happy ending. They got to all spend, God bless them, with a weekend together, and that just meant so much. Just to witness this and to be a part of it, it's just even hard to, it's just hard to dream something like that.
Yes, it is. It's just a miracle, I think, that God wanted them to be together, because he wanted a daughter so much that they got their wishes.
He did. I was so surprised. You remember when he said that to me about, I wish I had what Evelyn said. Boy, his wish came true very fast.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
And Clint was the kind of guy that, good things happened to Clint because he was a good man and good things happened to him. The Lord blessed him in such a big way, don't you think?
Yes, I do. He was he was a wonderful person, and he loved the Lord, and he was just wonderful.
He was so good to people, too. Now, I want to, back up a little bit and go in reverse and ask you some more questions about growing up with Clint. I have that photo of you, and he loved it, that I got framed, that you had put somewhere in a closet, and I found it and fixed it and framed it. It's so beautiful, and it's you in that grass skirt. Tell me that story.
Well, when Clint was overseas, when he came home, he brought me a gray skirt. And so I put it on, and I loved it. And they just thought it was a wonderful thing he did. And they took pictures of me and all that, And I really did like that skirt.
That was so sweet of him to do that. And to find that picture, that was amazing.
Yeah,
I have it framed in my office, Mom.
You do?
Everybody that comes in comments, you look just like a model standing there.
Oh, well, I really liked that gray skirt, but I didn't want, to put it out and let everybody see it, so I just stuck it back in the closet.
Well, it sure is beautiful. I wonder where it is now.
I don't know what happened to that gray skirt. I'd love to have it.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
I would too, but I don't know where Rachel took it or...
What country do you think that grass skirt came from? Maybe Japan or Hawaii? Well, Hawaii's not a country.
No,
I mean, you know what I mean.
Japan is where...
That's what I thought,
yeah,
Japan.
Yeah, Japan's where it came from.
But it's such a beautiful skirt.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard that you and Clint used to ride bicycles together. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, we would ride bicycles, and he was so good at doing that. And he'd ride with his hands on the steering wheel.
On the handlebars?
On the handlebars, and have his feet up in the air. And then I would get on there, and he'd ride me everywhere. But I could ride a bicycle really good. We all had one. But he'd do all kinds of tricks on them. He was really good.
Clint was probably besides my dad, as things got older, Clint was probably your best friend, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He was, besides my brother, he was the best friend I ever had, besides my kids or Billy, you know.
But you had your family, but Clint, he just seemed like out of all of them, he was your best friend.
He's the one that we grew up with. I mean, he was so good to me, and he helped me with, in the housework and everything I asked him to do, he'd do it. But the others, they were kind of distant from us.
Right. Clint was just real helpful and compassionate, and he liked to do things with you because you were not only his sister, to him, you were his friend.
I was his best friend that I know of, because that hurt me more when he passed.
Oh, I know. That was really sad and very just unexpected. And but the thing is, I'm so glad that he got to live such a long life, and he lived a full life, because Clint was full of life. You remember when we had that family reunion? Yeah. And we gave out awards, and he got the award for the best looking legs.
Yeah, he did. He got an award for the best looking legs. Yeah.
I remember he danced with us a whole lot, and it was fun.
He danced with my hairdresser, and she's got red hair, and he every once in a while he said, "Where's that redhead woman at?"
Viola.
Viola, yeah.
Viola's a case.
Where's that redhead woman?
Yeah, she's a case.
He said she sure is nice, and she sure is a good dancer.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about what Mama and Papa, what they thought about Clint and what he did for them, and how they felt about him?
Oh, my mother and daddy, they loved him. He was so good to them. He would buy them things and anything they wanted. If they didn't want nothing, he would go ahead and buy them something anyway. He was really, really good to them.
Did he come home a lot from the service to visit?
Yes, he did. He come home every chance he got. He sure did.
So he never forgot you all?
Oh, no. Lord, no. He come home and stayed with us for a long time, and then that's when he went to West Virginia and worked in the mine.
Do you remember if Uncle Clint was drafted, or did he just join the service?
He was drafted.
So they drafted him into the Army?
They drafted all my brothers except one.
Right. I remember that. Mm-hmm. Which one didn't get drafted?
John, my oldest brother, didn't get drafted.
Okay. Was it just because he was older and they weren't looking for people at that age range, or what was it?
Probably. Well, he wasn't too old, but I just don't know. He got out of it some way with his children or something. Some way about his children.
But Clint didn't really mind to go, did he?
Oh, no. He wanted to go. Boy, he made a handsome soldier, didn't he?
Yes, and I've been sending you some of these pictures that I've been finding and actually putting color to the black and white so you could see them in color.
That really sets him off.
So Clint, when he went into the Army, was he there 4 years or more than that?
I think it was 4 years he was there. Mm-hmm.
And so when he first left, did it really make you sad?
Yes, it did. I missed him so much, and the whole family missed him, and Mom and Dad. He'd write us so, and he'd call us, and he'd never forget us.
Did you write him a lot of letters?
Yes, I did. I wrote him every week, and just every time I got a chance, I'd send him a letter, send him something, and he'd write us back.
Clint was also a really good cook, and one of the things that I remember that he cooked really well was that sawmill gravy.
Yes, and he loved chicken and dumplings. He'd cook him chicken and dumplings and take them to my sister, and she loved them too. She just loved them.
You talking about Rachel?
I'm talking about Rachel, yeah.
He was good to Rachel too.
Oh, yeah, he's good to all his family.
I miss her too.
Yeah, I miss Rachel awful bad.
I called her Richie Rachel.
Yeah, I know it. She's a sight, I tell you, and I miss her. Sometimes I think, well, I'll go pick up the phone and call her.
She didn't hand out compliments very often, but the one compliment that she gave me I'll never forget. She told me, She said, what I like about you the most is the way you take care of your mother.
Oh, she said that.
She did. She said it at our office up in the lobby when she was up there having her breakfast. You know how she'd come in and eat breakfast with you?
Oh, yeah, she sat there at the desk with me, and me and her'd eat a biscuit and cheddar rounds, and whatever she brought me, I ate it.
And you all watched TV together.
Yeah, we watched the news, and she's waiting on Diane because Diane had to go to the downtown or do something, and she'd drop her off there, and she'd stay with me.
Well, is there anything else special that you want to tell me about Clint, or something that just comes to your mind that may be a question I didn't ask you? Is there anything else that you would like to say about him? Like I said, the last thing we were talking about a minute ago was the fact that he can cook so well. Gosh, I remember when he used to live beside of my grandmother, your mother, and Dad. You know, he took care of them a lot, but they had that big garden. I remember Uncle Clint making us the biggest meals, and I remember him cooking spaghetti and all this stuff.
He was such a good cook, and he was so neat and clean. His house was beautiful. You could go in up there to see him, and his house, you could eat off the floor. It was so clean.
Everything Clint did, everything he did really was filled with class. Like you said, he was clean and he was particular about things. He always made sure things got done. He had good follow-through, and he took good care of his parents.
Yes, he did. He would help anyone that needed help. My family, he told me one day, he said, Evelyn, I'd give anything if I had a family like you. Said, I love your girls, and said, John Henry, that was my oldest brother, he said his girls is wonderful. He loved every one of them.
You're right. I remember him saying that lots of times. I really do.
Yeah, he just was, well, we didn't let him get lonesome. We tried our best. I'd call him every day, and he'd come over here, and I'd go up there, we would, and he said our family was his.
And he would come to the office about 2 or 3 times every week.
Yeah, and he'd bring me cookies and candy and just all kinds of stuff he'd bring me.
And he'd always make us laugh. He was a very, very happy person.
Yeah, he just stand there and laugh and talk to the people that worked there, and he was just so wonderful.
Do you remember when Libby and I were kind of little? Libby and I, aren't that many years apart growing up, and Uncle Clint's yard was right beside of your parents' yard, my grandparents' yard. And there was all those apple trees and that garden and all that stuff. And Clint had a really big backyard. And one day, Libby and I were out playing, and Libby was way farther out than me. You remember that black dog attacking Libby, and Clint came out there and saved her?
Yes, I remember that. I sure do. That was terrible.
I was screaming and running, trying to help her, and here he heard me, and he came running out there, and he got that dog off of her in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that was a mean dog. It was.
Yeah, there's things like that you just don't forget, but Clint was just, and I love those hats he always wore.
Yeah, I bought him one for Christmas.
I did too, and I loved his, those sport coats, those blazers he'd wear, and he always drove the nicest car.
Yes, bless his heart, he just got a new car before he passed.
He was such a handsome man and just so sweet.
Yes, he was, and I'll sure miss him.
Can I tell you something really funny? This is the funniest thing he's ever said to me ever.
What did he say?
Well, one day we were having, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, and he had brought somebody with him to eat, and he never really did, but this time he did. And he looked at me and he said, "Don't blow my cover." I said, "What cover?" He said, "Don't tell her. She thinks I'm 40.
Oh, God.
And I said, "Don't worry. I won't say a word." And
I remember that.
Wasn't that hilarious?
Yes, it was.
And you know what? After that, he never brought anybody else. He said he didn't want to date nobody. He said, "I just want to be to myself."
Yeah, he'd been used to being by himself, and he said he just didn't want to put up with nobody else because, some of them would smoke, and he can't stand a cigarette. And
he did good on his own, though, didn't he?
Oh, yes, he kept his house clean, his washing. I went up there one day, me and Jesse, and and changed his bed and made his bed at one of the guest beds that when someone came up there to sleep in. And when he'd call me he needed help, why, we'd always go up there and help him. And
I know that. I know that to be true. He was just an amazing uncle, and I miss him. Mom, I don't have any uncles left, and I've only got one aunt, and that's on Daddy's side of the family. So I've ran out of uncles and aunts, and I'm telling you, I really miss Uncle Clint. He was my all-time favorite uncle, and I miss Rachel really bad too.
yes,
And I miss Aunt Joe.
oh yes, I miss her. And Clint loved Chad.
Oh, yes.
He loved Chad because Chad was so good to him, and every time he called, Chad would take off up there, or Jesse, either one.
Yeah, Chad and Jesse always helped look after Clint, and, they'd go up there and do anything he needed, and they'd go out and do things for him and fix stuff that broke. And he had a great neighbor, too, Jim, his next-door neighbor.
Yeah, he was really good to him.
They were good friends, and I was really glad that Clint had somebody like that next door to him.
Yes, I was too. He needed someone, to watch after him to see if, anything happened to him. But he didn't. He got along good.
And, he got to do everything he wanted. Clint told me he never wanted to be in any facility. He said, I want to stay at my home. And, the Lord blessed him, and Clint got to stay at his home.
He said, I tried to get him to sell his house
Get a condo and move closer.
In a condo and move close to me because these condos right up from me. And he said, Evelyn, I love my home, and this is where I want to die. That's what he said.
I remember that. Mom, I just want to tell you something. Well, let's end on a funny note. Tell me something else funny about it. I don't want to end on a sad note.
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. He's just a wonderful brother and friend to me, and I miss him a lot. And I miss his laughter, and I miss him going dancing with us, and I just miss him a lot.
I know. I'm thinking about the next holiday that's coming up. I'm thinking about 4th of July, and, he's not going to be here with us to eat and have cake, and it's so sad.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's just every time we have a dinner here, or Thanksgiving or something, it's just not the same. It's just not the same.
I know it, Mom. I'm sorry I coughed a little bit. My throat's dry. I haven't had anything to drink, and talking about Uncle Clint's got me choked up. Yeah. It's hard to talk about it because it's almost his birthday, but I want to tell you again how much I appreciate you. I know this was hard for you, but I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me about your relationship with Uncle Clint and all the fun you had with him and how you felt about him. And I just want to thank you for your time this evening.
Well, you're welcome, and I enjoyed talking about him because I miss him.
I know. We're always going to keep his memory alive. And I sure do look forward to our next podcast, don't you?
Yes, I do. I'm going to have to think of another one.
Okay. Well, listen, you have a great evening, and it's Friday. It's Good Friday. It's God's Friday. And Easter's just around the corner in a couple of days. And I hope you enjoy the meal that I cooked for you.
Oh, I do. It was wonderful.
And we'll get together again very soon and do our next interview.
All righty. I love you.
I love you, and thank you, Mom. God bless you.
God bless you, and goodbye.
Bye for now.